Hey, it is Sunday and it is time for my mental health vlog. And you may notice, I sound so much better. I think I had my first negative COVID test like Tuesday and was finally feeling normal Monday evening, Tuesday. So my fiance took a few extra days to start feeling normal, but he's feeling normal too. So we just need to disinfect the house and then we can have my son over. This has been a good week. I was well enough to go to my meeting on Wednesday, and I'm really glad that I was, because this past Wednesday I got my 4-year chip for my sobriety in SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous. And I got a little emotional in the meeting when I accepted my chip, because I started to really think back to my first few meetings and where I was and how I was and how different I am now to then. So the gratitude of the milestone was emotional for me. Especially since I've just decided to modify my circles for my program, which is the first time I've done that since I started my program. So that in itself is a little scary. And if you haven't watched all my vlogs, don't worry, but how sobriety works in Sex Addicts Anonymous is the idea is not to stop being sexual altogether, because if that was it, I'd be out. But it is to identify the negative sexual activities and traits and characteristics that were detrimental to your existence and character, and put those in an inner circle. And your inner circle behavior is the things you don't touch, things you don't do, things that if you stay out of the circle for a set amount of time, that defines your sobriety. We have middle circle, we have center circle, middle circle, and outer circle characteristics that we identify for ourselves. Outer circle characteristics are going to the store, being in groups of people, just healthy stuff, just mowing the grass, self-care, all that kind of stuff. Middle circle behavior would be, again, dependent on everyone's different program. One of the things in my program is staying off of any kind of dating or sex-focused app, Growler, Grindr, Scruff, whatever new ones that have come out in the past couple of years. Staying off of those completely. I have to. But middle circle behavior would have been a great example, would have been up till recently talking to people through like my Instagram accounts, especially my business account, which, if it's a very sex-focused business. And I was finding those conversations to be a little reminiscent of conversations that I would have in the apps. So last week I did talk to my sponsor, and I moved how I manage those conversations into my inner circle. So I now have something new in my inner circle to maintain my sobriety. And that's scary, because recently my sobriety has been kind of, easy. And I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but when I was starting to get euphoric recall or memory feelings by talking to people on Instagram, and it was starting to remind me of those conversations that I had had in the apps, that's when I was like, nope, I got to do something. And it was hard. It's a hard decision to make, and you don't make changes like that lightly, but I did. So I made that with my sponsor, and I talked about it in my meeting on Wednesday. So Wednesday was great because I talked about changes in my program, as well as getting the milestone of achievement for my 4 years of sobriety. So we continue on to, another year. Or honestly, as long as, I'm good day to day, that's really all that matters. The milestones are nice, but I just got to focus on today, one day at a time. And I do. And that's been great. Speaking of my program, I finally did some work on my 5th step this week. My 4th step was identifying my defects of character and how they impacted my addiction. With your 5th step, you dig into those defects of character a little bit more, give some examples to really how they impacted your addiction, and also how those defects of character are handled or managed now in sobriety and recovery. So the second part of doing the fifth step is finding somebody in the group that maybe you don't know as well as some of the others, someone that's more new, someone that you don't really talk to a whole lot, and kind of meeting with them and talking about your defects of character and what you discovered during your process and how you feel like it affected your addiction. And you can share some backstory with them if they don't know, and I did that today. And then they provide feedback. So actually, there was someone in the group that I that's not new, but I've never really connected really well with, but who seems like a very nice person. So I also know he's very, very into the program. So took some time today and met with him at Starbucks. It was supposed to be a half hour. I think we were there for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. It was really nice to talk to this person and to get to know them more, to get to know a little more about their journey, to have them know a little bit more about my journey. And then when we were going over the defects of character that I had notarized or notated and wanted to talk about, he was able to provide some really interesting not experience but perspective and advice on some of the things that how I was wording things or how I was doing things or how I was thinking about things. And some of that was great because I took my pen and took notes just because he was making recommendations and commenting on things that I just hadn't thought of or I'd never connected together. Like how many of my defects of character were actually boiling down to self-seeking behavior, which is a cornerstone of a sex addict. So it was great. I'm glad I did that. And the next part of that will be in my meeting on Wednesday is I will do a little mini share, and my share will be basically a condensed version, a very condensed version of what I went over today with the other guy from my group. So once I've done that, I have admitted to myself, to my sponsor, to my higher power, and to the group, because the group is also my higher power, my defects of character. And that will complete my fifth step. I'll go back over the notes and feelings and stuff with my sponsor, and then we will start the sixth step. So procrastination is absolutely one of my defects of character, but I'm excited to have a little momentum in my step work again and push it along because I have to. I want to be able to help other sex addicts. I want to be able to. They're the members that have come into the group. I'm like, I would be a great sponsor for them. But I'm not ready to sponsor because I'm not there yet. And I want to be there. I want to be able to reach out to the sex addict that still suffers. That's part of the program. So the house being the incubus of plague that it has been, we were not comfortable yet to have my son come over this weekend, especially early in the week. We didn't know what was going to go on. We didn't know how long it was going to take my fiance to get over all of the sickness that he had, because he had a lot more than COVID. So we wanted to I planned the day for me and my son, pick him up in the morning and spend all day together. Okay, first off, that was exhausting, but I have been missing him so much, and I was so excited to see him, and he was in such a good mood, and we had such a great day. It was expensive, but I had like $500 that I was going to put back in the savings account that I brought back from the cruise from some casino winnings. And I know that our accounts are pretty low right now, so I took 100 out of that with me just so I had cash in case I needed it for the day. And I did end up needing it. So, but in the grand scheme of things, with what I got out of Saturday, the cost is moot. It's so moot. It really was. And honestly, without having him over the past couple of weekends, it balanced out because of what we would have spent on pizza or eating out or whatever. So I thoroughly enjoyed my day with my son. We started at like 10:30. His dad and I needed to talk about a few things, and by the time we were leaving the apartment, it was like 11:15. So I told my son, like, we're not doing fast food today. What do you want to do for lunch? And he's like, Smash Burger. I'm like, okay, I've been there twice, so sure, let's try Smash Burger. So I went to Smash Burger and he ate chicken strips. I'm like, why did you want to go to Smash Burger for chicken strips? You can get chicken strips. I don't know, whatever. So I had lunch at Smashburger, kind of talked about like what we wanted to do the day. I told him one of the ideas I had was a museum of illusion. I had a friend of mine recommend that on Facebook. Thank you, by the way. I think that was Ivy. Thank you. That was a great recommendation because it was super cool. And it's this little pop-up museum inside of the Galleria Mall in Houston. Much smaller than I expected it to be. But what a hoot. That place was so cool, and we had some really great photo moments, and my son had fun, I had fun, and he does love a good museum. I know that he and his dad go to like Museum of Natural History a lot. So when we were done there, I'm like, okay, well the only other thing I have on my list today is Dave & Buster's, because I had a pocket full of gift cards that were his. And he's like, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm like, okay, so let's do another museum. I'm like, okay. And he's like, the aquarium. I'm like, all right, well, it's the downtown Houston Aquarium. I've actually never been there. So let's go check it out. So, we got parking, and we got in, and we paid the entrance fee, and we walked through a couple of exhibits, and then all of a sudden we were in the gift shop, and I'm like, did we make a wrong turn? Like, is that it? No, that was it. It's basically a restaurant with a couple of fish tanks downstairs, and for some reason, because aquariums always have, white tigers, they have some Bengal tigers. I found out later they're not like an accredited zoo, and they don't, evidently, rumor has it, they don't treat those tigers very well, so I'm kind of sad that I gave them money. But, he had a good time. He wanted to do the stingray thing, and we got a little closer, and the smell of fish was really strong, and I'm super, super sensitive to the smell of fish. Like, it makes me gag and sick, and he didn't really care, but he was like, yeah, this line's too long, and this smells too bad. Let's go. I'm like, oh, thank you. Pardon me, this cough is going to hang on for a while. So then we left the aquarium, and we went over to the Marquee area to go to Dave & Buster's. And before we went in, behind Dave & Buster's, there's this odd little shop that has a zillion different types of sodas that most of you've probably never heard of. Most of them sound completely disgusting. Picture like those Harry Potter jelly beans that come in all those weird flavors, but in soda, like dirt and grass and mustard and earwax and anyway, what's drinking? So they had all these different flavors of soda. He wanted to get one that was a Stalin. I don't know what my son had, obsession my son has about communist leaders, but he wanted a Stalin soda, which was red, of course. And it doesn't tell you what it tastes like. Secret KGB flavor. And then I got one that was a chocolate soda. And so we sat outside, and we were drinking our sodas and commenting on the sodas and poured out the soda. His tasted like cherry limeade with gasoline. Like, it was like, oh, this is really good. Oh, no, it's not. The really good first flavor, and then the aftertaste, it feels like your tongue's been exposed to some, weird radiation or something. So KGB soda sounds about right. Then we went into Dave & Buster's, and at Dave & Buster's, I'm like, you go and you do. If you want me to come with you and play a game, I will come with you and play a game. So I kind of kept an eye on him, and he did his things, and he, there were a lot of kids there, so he, buddy up with some kids and do some stuff, which I love watching. I love when he does that, because he can make friends so easily. And then I just kind of sit in one spot, and I'll do one game for a while. I just wanted to kind of build up tickets so we can get him something out of the gift shop. And then he was like, I'm not out of money, but I'm ready to go. I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm not winning any games. I've only earned like 2 tickets. Keeping in mind that he's not playing the tickets. He's not playing the games that earn tickets. He's playing the games that are games. You're not going to earn a lot of tickets that way. But I digress, because I'm willing to give him all of my tickets. I don't care. Because there's nothing in that gift store or that shop that's actually good or useful. So I don't care. But he was distraught. So I'm like, all right, well, that's it for my list. And at this point, it was like 4:30. And I'm like, it's 4:30. I said, we've got a lot of time before dinner. He's like, well, do you just want to go home early? I'm like, absolutely not. I said, I want to get every moment with you that I can today. And so he said, okay, cool. So we went to like Katy Mills Mall. It's this outlet mall relatively close to where he lives. And then we walked around the mall. We caught some Pokemon on our phone. We went into Books a Million. He loves books. He tried to get me to buy him 2,000 different books. And I'm like, if you pick a book, I will get you a book. I have no problem buying my son a book. I love that he loves to read. I hate that I don't love to read, but I love that he loves to read. So I will buy him a book, no problem. But he turned out to not want one. And then we walked around the mall, caught some Pokemon, and then had some dinner at the food court. And I think I got him home about 15 minutes ahead of schedule. But at that point, he and I were both just like so wiped out because we had been going all day long and we had just been nonstop all day. I think my step count for the day was almost 8,000 steps, which for me is a lot of steps. But man, I needed yesterday. I needed yesterday in the worst kind of way. And, and there were conversations that serious conversations I needed to have with him about his behavior and his attitude and his lying and stuff that, I've been hearing about from my ex. And, those were important conversations that he needed to know. One, I'm aware of what's going on. And two, I'm also not okay with what's going on. And or kind of reminding him that certain things that apply at Daddy's house apply at Papa's house. And those rules are universal. So, there were some serious conversations that were needed. But honestly, overall, we just had so much fun. But man, I'm exhausted. I was exhausted. I came home last night and I took a gummy and I didn't do much else. My fiance has been working on the house, and before the cruise, we found some pretty substantial water damage. Today, we confirmed that water damage exists on the other side of the fireplace as well. So we have come to the conclusion that we do have to make some pretty substantial repairs to the house. So as much as that does suck, I've been kind of looking into options for getting the needed money we need for those repairs, because our savings have been pretty depleted by other repairs for the house. So unfortunately, that puts us in a position where we're looking at like 401k loans and withdrawals to help cover the cost, because not only do we need to replace the damage done by the poorly installed windows, we actually really need to replace the windows in the entire house. They are all so bad. And that's going to be at least a $10,000 project. And what terrifies me is because whenever we remove something, we find something. So what are we going to find when we replace the windows? I'm scared. I'm legitimately scared. But we've got the 2 window areas that are on either side of the chimney. We've got a fireplace. We've got those covered up with tarps to keep the cold air out, because downstairs has been freezing. We have 2 holes in the house. There's a thin layer of outside wall protecting us from outside. That's nothing. So we've got some tarps in the house to keep down the airflow downstairs kind of going. We've temporarily turned the gas fireplace into a wood burning fireplace because the gas valves are corrupted. Fun. And we're doing what we can to keep downstairs warm. This past week has been cold. It was some of the coldest Houston had since the freeze last year, a couple years ago. So just doing what we can. This house is a money pit. It's been very hard to love this house. We make progress, and then we take a step back, or we're pushed a step back before we can move forward. I know eventually this house will be something that we can love, and I really hope that we can regain what we've had to put into the house when it comes time to sell. And that'll be a while. But everything we're doing is helping to build equity. It's just, you're out of money. So that's what I'm facing. I do want to add that I told you we started a group chat with my ex and his boyfriend and me and my fiance, so that we can all communicate about my son, a whole parenting system for my son. Yesterday, when I made some comments about the conversations that I'd had with my son, was the first time that it had really been an active chat. Everyone was participating, everyone was responding, there was feedback from everybody, and that was really cool, because that's the first time that's happened. And it gave me hope that the 4 of us really can be a parenting team for my son. So I'm very grateful for that. So that came out of this week, which is nice. So getting my 4-year chip, almost completing my 5th step, spending the entire day with my son, seeing strength of a parenting group for my son, and just life kind of returning back to normal after the illness. So this was a good week. Oh man, this house is gonna kill me. So anyway, check on your friends, make sure they are doing okay. I have several friends I have not talked to and heard from in a very long time, and one of which I actually did hear from this week, but I missed so much, and I've made a decision that come hell or high water, I'm gonna find a way to go see them and one other friend of mine this year. That's gonna happen. I don't know how yet, but that's gonna happen. Check on your loved ones, make sure they're doing okay. My brother-in-law just had to have some dental surgery, and he's recovering well. Check on yourself. What do you need? How is your self-care going? Holidays are over. Life has returned to normal. January is depressing. Everyone's depressed in January. So what are you doing to help counter that? Don't just ignore it. It's a real thing. What can you do for you? Self-care is a part of my sobriety, and my sobriety is part of my self-care, and I love that. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks for listening and hanging on, and I will check with you all next week. Bye, everybody.